revenue. So we're seeing situations where local governments are taxing us, they're tolling for trucks that come into plantations. The state wants to tax. However, it gets a share of the revenues of the company. So those are the kind of things that I think that as between the federal government, the states, and the local governments, for those of us that essentially operate in parts of the country that we actually don't benefit from any infrastructure that the government has put in place. So if you came into Okomu today, you'd essentially find a plantation that produces its own electricity, has its own schools, has its own clinics. Pretty much, we have almost no reliance on any infrastructure that government provides. And for us, if you said to me, what are the things that we would like? That's part of the reason why we can't compete with Indonesia and Malaysia, because the cost structures of what we have are such that it would be extremely difficult. And it leads me to my final point, the tariff structures. I mean, the Honorable Minister of Finance talks a lot about the conundrum that she faces, where we want the tariffs kept in place, but at the same time there are people who essentially say that local production doesn't meet local demand. While that is true, on our plantation, we essentially have in employment 2,000 people during the year, 4,000 people when we're harvesting. Now, we can't compete with Malaysia and Indonesia, but our total production could land on our shores in just one tanker. If you allowed that to happen, it would wipe out the livelihoods of people in the part of the country in which we produce. So I think it's important that the tariff structure be kept in place. I think it's important that we make sure that the ECOWAS benefits that are meant to go to production in the ECOWAS zone are targeted to the ECOWAS zone, as opposed to situations where we find today where somebody brings oil from Malaysia, for instance, and then they tell us that it's ECOWAS oil. Such as to beat the tariff structures that we have in place. So I think those are the kind of policies and incentives that we would like to have to protect local production.
Thank you very much. I think you've more or less covered a lot of ground really on the major areas which basically this is all about, from infrastructure to tax policies. And one of the things we've been grappling with, which you just mentioned, which is the issue of tariff, the common external tariff. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Minister of Finance, myself and a few others have agonized over these issues for a very long time, specifically how to make sure that Nigeria's own policy and Nigeria's interests are properly taken account of. Because ECOWAS CET is for the whole region, and not everybody has the same interest or the same starting point. So we really fully understand where you're coming from. What I want to thank you very much for that introductory statement. I think what I would like to suggest is the rest of the panel, of course you may, for emphasis purposes, repeat some of those things to the extent that they apply to your individual circumstance. For example, the issue of land, the registration, the titling, because as you correctly said, the state governments and governors control this. The only little information I'd like to give you here is that what we are doing on the housing subsector in order to encourage state governments to open up, maybe we'll look at that as a way to equally address this issue. I want to move on quickly to call on our next panelist, who is Mr. Calvin Burgess, Chief Executive Officer of Dominion Farms. Is that correct? This is in Taraba State of Nigeria. So, Calvin, please take it off from there.
Okay, we're fairly newcomers to Nigeria. We have been in Kenya for about 10 years now, and the Minister of Agriculture found out about us a couple of years ago, and through his persistent reaching out to us, we are here now, and he did a good job of that, I can tell you that. We have land waiting for us in many countries, but we're here, and we kind of put some of them on the side. The incentives we were offered were great, in many ways. First off, the land. The state, Taraba State, was going to give us roads and infrastructure. And the situation with the importation of our equipment, we were to receive duty waivers and many, many things that were supposed to get us through the ports very quickly, which the ports, frankly, scare the life out of anybody that's going to deal with Nigeria. It is the worst thing in your whole system. So we began the process of trying to bring our equipment in. We signed the MOU in about February of a year ago, whatever, a little over a year ago, in this hotel. Great fanfare, wonderful deal. We were off to the races. Well, the race didn't go very far. We purchased probably close to $10 million worth of equipment around the world, ordered rice mills, ordered everything, requested daily, hourly for those exemptions. Those exemptions did not come. We waited and we had things in shipment, got here, exemptions still not here, over and over and over. Well, we had, as usual, the corruption ran pretty freely. And we got down to, oh yeah, you can get your stuff if you only pay. Well, we won't pay. So come hell or high water, we stay with our morals and our principles. Thank you. After some time, probably for 7 or 8 months of fighting like mad, and finally my manager went to the Treasury and got a tape recording of them demanding bribes. It went to the Minister of Agriculture, and he took it to, I think, the Minister of Finance, and there were some arrests made. Well, that put a little fear in a few people, and that was excellent. So we went from there, and all of a sudden the duties were out of the way. Now you need to understand, the reason it was all of a sudden done is because on February 17th, the President signed the executive order saying there is no tax, no duties on any agricultural equipment to anyone, and that's fantastic. But it was put in the secret files, stamped secret files for the Treasury and Customs. Okay? Now, that's a really great revenue stream if you're in those two agencies. So all of a sudden, when the rest started coming, this thing came out of the secret files and we got a copy of it. That worked very well. And the equipment we had at that point in time was immediately gone. Well, we started then, they said, oh, we got a new regulation. And the new regulation is this SONCAP thing, which means you have to have everything pre-approved before you ship it. Now, that's great if you're Sony making televisions, and you're going to make 10,000 televisions and send them in. You can certify everything. But when you buy a 15-year-old disc Carol, it's really hard to certify it. When you go and buy a 3-year-old tractor from John Deere, or that John Deere made, they won't give you the specifications. That's their secrets. And when you buy a new one, John Deere says, we keep it. So for months on, we fight with SONCAP. We write letters, things happen very slowly, or they don't happen. Finally, we have determined that we will wear them out. And so we wear them out. On Monday of last week, we got a letter saying we're going to give an exemption from SONCAP. We finally won on SONCAP. We said, that's great. We'll send their stuff. Tuesday, they say, new rule. You now have to certify that all the things you ship in meet the environmental regulations of the EU, which is a bunch of crap. Okay? And we said, that's enough. You want to go this fight, we'll continue the fight down the line. And so that's the next hurdle. We don't think they'll get very far. What I have shown, though, is you can do business in Nigeria without paying 1 cent, 1 naira in bribes. You can hold your dignity. You can do the project that needs to be done, but you better have a lot of money to carry for interest. Because we are 1 year behind right now. But I still have my dignity. And what we need is the rest of the people here to do the same thing. We have the same difficulties with the police, I have had it out with the police on the sides of the roads. I have the EFCC's director's number in my phone, and I call him if I need him. Okay? And it's amazing when you bring that phone up and you dial, all the police officers disappear in 20 seconds. So I'm telling you, ask for their name and their identification numbers and tell them you're on the phone to the EFCC. It works. With that, I want to tell you there is great opportunities in Nigeria. There's great opportunities for agriculture. And we're pleased we're here. But it has been the most difficult project I have ever done in my life. And we are just started. I'd like to talk longer, but I need to let someone else get to this.
Calvin?
Yes.
You're a brave man.
Well,
but that indeed is the correct way to go. As you said, I'd like to really repeat what you said. You can do business in Nigeria. It doesn't have to be the other way. I do believe, and I think you said something that really struck a chord with myself and I'm sure with some of our colleagues, that at the end of the day, the government, the president, the officials actually moved when this thing was brought to their attention. So it is not, you have all these problems in many countries, but I think people need to move forward to bring out things and then to try to see what steps that government takes in order to redress. So I really want to first congratulate you and to thank you for your persistence and perseverance. What you're going to find as a payoff, as the Minister of Agriculture has said repeatedly on some of our fights, I would say, with some of the other persons involved, the returns are very, very, very good. You just need that perseverance in order to continue to drive it forward. So please give him another round of applause for... I want to now turn to the gentleman to my immediate left, MD Abubakar, CEO L&Z Integrated Farms. It's a dairy farm, it's a dairy sort of company. I think that's what I have here. And I understand you are based in Kano. I'm sure you have, maybe not, you've been a Nigerian and somebody who is quite experienced. I don't think you've gone through the experience of Calvin, but if you have, you know, I would like you not to dwell so much on that because that would be a repetition. But I would like you to be able to tell us some of those things that have sort of characterized what has been your experience, what are those types of things, given the environment in which you operate. I know the last 2 years have been challenging for everybody on the security side. Maybe if there are issues in those areas that you want to also talk about, you'll be welcome. But I think the bottom line here is that we want to hear from you and take a few points that we can actually take as policy things we're going to be pursuing in order to try to solve. So over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I like to make a disclaimer here. You said that most of us have dollars and nairas to invest. I'm afraid I'm an exception in this group. My qualification of being here, I'm sure, is being able to develop or to create a business that's one of the most difficult to do in this country. My input needs to be refrigerated. Good in progress needs to be refrigerated. Finished products needs to be refrigerated, transported, refrigerated, and then in the market, refrigerated, where you don't have power supply constantly. I think is the most challenging business you can ever do in this country. And I think making success of it is what qualifies me to be here, not the amount of dollars that has been put in because it's... yeah, probably if I tell a little story of my beginning and how I've been able to be here, will take care of most of the questions, and then the policymakers can infer what kind of incentives that is needed in our kind of industry. Actually, I'm one of those people that left the comfort of banking industry and delved into the unknown, farming for that matter. I was fortunate to have been a branch manager at less than 30 years old and in a new generation bank. And when I wanted to leave, some people were saying probably my old grandmother, co-wife had done something to make me leave this. You are in a chauffeur-driven vehicle in the city of Kano, and suddenly you wanted to leave and go into farming where everybody is suffering. But I persisted, and I started about 15 years ago. The most challenging when I started was I was going into a dairy farm and I needed cows. I tried the research institute to see if I can get seed cows, the breed that will give me the required yield to make my business